the Lidl grocery stores always has that for every season. They'll have some other gnome that you can buy.
Oh, you have more gnomes than I have in Norway. That's great.
I just heard. Look at that; they're everywhere. Look at this. Yours is kind of round and stout, just a little more Phil-like. I'm just going to say.
Oh, I love it. That is awesome.
He's your familiar. That's the same.
Yeah.
But do you have chock-full?
Wow, they are everywhere.
But I have a drink.
Awesome. Great. Oh,
Merry Christmas.
Great.
Happy holidays.
Cheers.
Hey, kids, it's a potential sponsor, Liberty Pole Bourbon Cream Liquor.
Oh, awesome. Speaking of the genie and rubbing the lamp.
Yeah.
We rubbed the lamp and he appeared in his jumper.
Too.
It's
I'm feeling festive.
Oliver Crunk Christmas jumper.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. You sound great.
Cool.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
I've got the port and glass here.
Nice.
Wow, look at that glass. He's serious about the port.
It's empty at the moment. Probably will be again in a minute.
Lego jokes?
This is Phil.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
Phil. Christmas Phil. I like it.
Christmas Phil. Love it. Mini Phil. That's great. Little Phil.
And I guess we have Christmas Chris here.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Nutcracker.
Nutcracker. He's kind of military. I know you're into
sort of an evil mustache. I like that. Yeah.
And then for completeness, we have Christmas Whynde here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that nice?
By the way, I didn't build this. This happens to be the Christmas characters we have. And then I'm now left with some random elf because that's the only.
Awesome.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's the CST in Lego form right here.
Let's see. We'll go.
I miss you guys. This is such a highlight of my fortnights when we do this. So cool.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. I'm Chris Lockhart in my Christmas jumper. We have with us for this very special Christmas episode, we have Phil Yanoff, we have Whynde Keene, and we have Oliver Crunk. And we have the four of us together. It's a Christmas miracle. And I kind of wanted to do, we've done Christmas episodes in the past where it's like, they sometimes go for 3 hours and there's tremendous drinking involved and let's get every guest on and all that sort of stuff. This year, I thought we could keep it a little bit more simple, a little more streamlined. I don't know if we can get it under an hour, but we can try. But I thought, hey, what if we did sort of a Christmas Carol, a Charles Dickens sort of framework, because we're consultants of framework. And we talk about, Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future, with past stuff in the history of the podcast, present stuff sort of in our experiences, and then future stuff. And then we have some special words from some folks that I think we want to weave into. So with that, I'm just going to raise a glass to you guys. I just wanted to thank you for being part of this thing. I'm glad you're here. Just going to take a sip, just to wet the whistle.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So the first thing I wanted to do was take a look at, if we're thinking of Christmas past and we're thinking of things in the past, I kind of wanted to pull up what I think were some good moments from the past of this podcast. And to start with, I'm going to actually pull up. Let's see if I've got it here. So this comes from the very first episode of Consultants Saying Things in, I believe it was March of 2018, maybe 17, 18, somewhere in there. This episode, as you can tell by the technical quality of the production, was, I think shot on an iMac or a MacBook Pro phone, and
this is back when we actually did do it on Kodak Fun Savers.
It was correct.
Cameras that we had. Yeah.
It was a 30. It was a 16 mil. There was a hand crank on the side.
8.
Yeah, it just 8. Yeah,
Super 8.
Super 8. So I wanted to kind of play this and kind of get. We could talk about sort of the reaction, I think, to what is being said. This is Phil Yanoff actually talking about users. We were talking about design thinking in this episode, and he has some interesting things to say that I think we want to react to. And again, this is his first appearance on the podcast. Ready? Here we go.
One of the smartest people. So, one of the smartest people I know is Phil Yanoff, and I know Phil is certified in design thinking. Do you have your certificate?
Oh, I don't have my certificate. I was just. Oh, I'm sorry. We're in the middle of this already. I was reading right here. Oh, just sorry. You caught me during my morning devotional.
Yeah, excellent. By the way, that's my book, The People Problem by Chris Lockhart, available on Amazon.com.
It's still for sale, by the way. You can go buy it.
I've been through a couple of classes in the design thinking, and we're lucky here. The Design Thinkers Academy is based in my hometown, and so has a chance to talk to those cats and actually use design thinking and learn about it. And I think, everyone here has kind of talked about the stuff side of it. The thing I really like about design thinking is it talks about the people side of it, right? And that is, kind of where Shashi was headed with it. But I think about it even more, which is what is the emotional state and what are the people trying to get done who are interacting with my product or service, and how am I transforming them as they go through the process? So, I think it's it is a great framework. And one of the things I like about it, particularly for the software design side and service design side, is it is asking people to, before you go and design the product or service, or before you design its next iteration, go out and talk to the customer and do some real actual research.
Right, Chris.
First of all, how young you were. What do you think of that? I mean, look, you were just a babe. You were a babe.
When did we start this thing now?
I don't know.
What year was that?
2018. I can actually go find the.
You were playing the video.
1928. Right?
1928. Yeah, a while ago. This was March of 2018.
2018. So, I mean, to your point, I mean, that's really only, what is that? 5 years ago or whatever. 5 years ago. I mean, look how this podcast has aged me. I looked so young when we started it, right? But, being here and knowing you for 5 years has really taken it out of me. I think that's all that's what we're here to talk about.
Is this the before, or that's the after?
That's the after Lego. And the before Lego, I was a Playmobil figure with a smooth face, and hands that did like this, right? Yeah, but in the after figure, I'm that Lego dude with a beard and a Santa hat.
But what struck me? What struck me about what you said in that episode, and I mean, if you recall, to the extent we do any preparation today, is not much. But for that episode, it was like, hey, I'm going to call you and let's talk, right? And that was it. So what you said, though, was, I think, so valid then and now, maybe even more so now than it was then, because that was before COVID, before there was, work from home or hybrid or any of this. The need for connectivity and connection and understanding people and what they're trying to do and what they want and all that kind of stuff. It's really critical now, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I mean, I like that, hopefully I was almost as smart then, or maybe I was smarter then, now I'm in my state of cognitive decline. But, I think just over time, I think that still matters. And thanks for writing the book. Brilliant, just
beautiful.
Genius.
I thought it was awesome.
Old Phil was so smart.
And still talking about the cats, even years ago. Love it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the episodes I watched when I first got involved.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry about that.
I still said yes, Chris. So it's all good.
Chris, is it possible that maybe if I were a Patreon subscriber, I could go back and watch all these old episodes?
So not just that, that was a 23-minute episode, our very first episode. There was an hour and 15 minutes of video that was shot for that episode. And at that point in time, I thought, hey, every podcast has to be like 15 minutes. That was my belief at the time. And I didn't manage to get it to 15 minutes. I got 23 minutes. But here's the thing, Phil, I'm glad you asked, right? All of that additional content is available for those that are interested in watching it. Because quite frankly, there's some really good shit in there. I'm sorry. There's some really good stuff in there. And, I think if someone would be willing to toss a virtual shekel in the old tip jar, as it were, the Salvation Army kettle, perhaps, that we could make that available for them. So it's patreon.com, and we'll make sure that we have the link up for anyone that wants to maybe become a Patreon, help support the vast behind the scenes enterprise that we have here, doing research and production.
Tell you who the target audience is, particularly for this, Chris, is anyone looking to do particularly detailed background research on Chris Lockhart or Phil Yanov, so like if you're like checking their application for something, are they sane people? Just to spend a few years of your life reviewing this footage.
I'm with you. We called it scraps. They call it evidentiary findings.
Exactly.
So yes,
e-discovery. Yeah,
that's right. It's all part of that. But anyway, lucky.
So, I didn't want to give another clip from the very same episode, right? But a couple episodes later, I think I had possibly one of the only good points I've made in 6 years, and I like it. And so I thought, this was, this is sort of now my Christmas past. Let's see if I can cue that one up. This is from an episode about what we called going analog, right? Because at the time, it's like, everything's digital. We're going digital. And yet there were companies like Amazon that were actually going brick and mortar, right? This was the era of buying Whole Foods and that sort of stuff. And Best Buy at the time, we talk a lot about Best Buy in the episode. Best Buy, U.S. electronics retailer, was sort of bucking the trend. Every other electronics retailer had closed down, but Best Buy was sort of bucking the trend. So one of the questions was, well, why is that, right? And so I think this was a particularly interesting thing. We put it, I think I'm talking about through the lens of healthcare and pharmacies opening. And I think this is 2018, folks. And I think there's it's pretty good. Let's see if I got that here. Let's see if we can go. Let me push play.
But let me interrupt you right there, right, before we go on, because the pharmacy thing, right? Let's talk about that for a second, because, clearly in the healthcare space, just if you were a regular player in the healthcare space, traditional, not like a disruptor or something, but just that there's been consolidation going on. You have companies that are traditionally providers becoming payers and the other way around, and both of them becoming, actual like pharma, locations. I'm thinking like United Healthcare and Minute Clinic. I'm thinking, all these different things, right? And so that alone, there's been a lot going on. But then you add in this idea that maybe there's a supply chain piece of this that Amazon's an expert in, and they're going to get into the pharma space. So, now we've just expanded, the idea of going brick and mortar is more than Amazon offering the stuff they already sell in a brick and mortar location, or buying into an entire industry like grocery and going whole hog there. Now we're also dealing with this, there's formulation involved. There's all this regulation involved with pharma. What is the incentive for a digital company to get into that space?
I thought that was pretty prescient, right?
A great question, and great hair, by the way, since we want to critique our past selves. Still great hair.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, the shirt I was wearing is called Cock of the Walk. It's a chicken, and it just says Cock of the Walk. It's available for sale, by the way, if you'd like to buy one. Dirt
Is
Roads
it also
Living.
in the Patreon? Oh, no.
No, it will be in the Patreon for sure, but it's dirtroadsliving.com if anyone is curious about that shirt. So I thought, look, this was, I don't want to say that I was clairvoyant, but there was some,
you saw it coming, and I think that's right. I think that was, you're spot on in that thinking. It was a great question. And the thing is, we know now, right? Oh my God, healthcare then and now is so ripe for disruption and remains, and in the US, sorry for our international friends here, but
it's a good point, actually. This is very regional. That's a really good add-on there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so ripe for disruption. And so you've got Amazon and Mark Cuban and all these folks trying to make steps into that space, right?
Well, I think, I think even in countries, in the Scandinavian model and others that are fully single payer healthcare models. And then you've got, Germany, Canada, you've got others that are sort of quasi, they've got private, they've got public, they've got whatever. In the US, I think we've got 5 separate single payer systems in addition to the private healthcare market, right? So I think there's plenty of opportunity for disruption, not just in the United States, but elsewhere as well. Whynde, what do you think about that? You're on mute, by the way.
No, I know. I'm just sort of musing at these videos so far because I feel like we're looking at the past a little bit. We're looking at a point in time, and then now here we sit and we feel 2023, and like Phil's, clip on design thinking, like human has never been more important than it is right now with Gen AI, and like the disruption that you're talking about, Chris, and the pace of disruption. It's just an uncertainty. It just feels like it's so magnified in where we're sitting and looking back at, I won't say the beginnings of it, but just seeing it a few years ago. It's kind of mind blowing, actually.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Which brings us, I think, if we're continuing, if the ghost of Christmas past is taking us on our journey, we've been to the old school, right? We've been to I don't know, wherever the hell else he goes in the story. But anyway, now, we're definitely in jolly old England.
Oh no, here we go.
So I have 2 videos, Oliver, because I think this at the time it was the best cold open that we had to that point. And I do want to share it. You might not remember this one. This was from your very first episode. And we were talking about, I forget exactly how you and I connected. I don't remember.
LinkedIn, I think. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Well, I'm sure it was LinkedIn, but I don't remember over what, right?
I was a big fan of the podcast. I think I was
I thought you said it was Oliver's OnlyFans account. Kind of just
Lego.
Oliver
He's just
jumpers.
showing Lego models.
And showing off his jumpers and in Legos. Yeah.
That'd be a great idea. I'd probably make a lot more money than that in my day job. Anyway, carry on.
No, but I mean, that's a really good point. You were a fan of the show. And if you would like to be a fan of the show, you can go to patreon.com and we'll put that link out there. So that you can maybe, again, toss a coin in the tip jar. So anyway, so this was we were talking about, I think you were working at a company called Tanium at the time, big, right. International firm. And you were talking, I think we were talking about endpoint security.
We were
something along that line. But before we got to that, I wanted to share this, this cold open because I thought it was pretty good. And for those who have watched the podcast before, you will notice Shashi Sharmali is in it. Bill Bensing is in it. And we don't talk about her often, but Carol Hamilton is also in it. And so I just want to share that. Let's see if we can get that going here. Do that.
This is when I was a guest, right? This is before I
were a guest.
The regular crew. I was a guest.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
I got it shaped up the other day.
It's well trimmed, nicely done. Yeah.
Good job.
It was what was that? Sparta. They're asking what did it look like. I was like the dude in Sparta, like the 300 Sparta guy. Like
Leonidas.
Make me look like him.
Well, at least it's still black, right? I've got this starting right here, so that's.
I've got.
What's that called? Snow on the porch. There's some snow on the porch. Yeah. It's all snow eventually. Just going to tell you.
I swear, Oliver, this gets better.
What I was about to say is my Zoom has Chris and then Phil below. So it's almost like I have, I don't know, like what Phil will, I would actually, maybe I'll stop there because Phil might get upset.
Before and after? Is that where you're going here? Yeah. Nice start, dude.
Yeah. Why would I be upset? It's Lockhart who should be upset. Oh my God, this is what's going to happen to me? Holy cow. End it now.
I thought that was fantastic. And when I was watching that back, I was just like, man, that was great.
As a guest, I was like, hang on, I've just started to make a joke that probably I shouldn't make, but it was too late because the joke with the cat was out of the bag.
We all knew what it was. Yeah, we knew where you were headed at that point, right? Yeah, right. I get it. And then
I was trying to be polite. I was trying to be British. Yeah, God.
Yeah. And Carol's trying to make everyone feel comfortable. Oliver's like realizing where he's headed with this. And there's some great tension in that. I think that is an absolutely great open.
Yeah. So, but for, a look more into actual insightful content that Oliver was providing with his baby face,
that's so different than
going on.
12.
Yeah. Let's take a look from the same episode now. This one again was about endpoint security. So let's see if we can get going.
I mean, I think this is where the kind of CISO role has really kind of been elevated, right? I mean, I think there's been a lot of debate about how technical a CISO should be versus sort of how business sort of savvy they need to be. And I think it's made it clear that the CISO needs to talk the business language. They need to be able to kind of communicate and lead a situation like this and make sure the organization is thinking about the holistic risk picture, not just the sort of security and technology risk picture, but those physical risks that we've kind of touched on, like the kids perhaps getting access to something they shouldn't have access to, and or just leaving the laptop somewhere, or working in an environment that's just not sensible given the information you got access to. So, I mean, I think ultimately it's that kind of cliche that security is everyone's responsibility, a bit like health and safety, right? But ultimately, I think folks need to kind of have that leadership to understand what are those really important things I need to know, because ultimately, as Carol says, this can be really baffling for folks. It's just too much. It's just, what now? What's the next thing I need to be aware of? And I think it's important that, that kind of comms, given that folks are kind of in a really stressful time at home, at work, kind of this blended model, they're probably suffering from like information overload anyway. So how do you kind of make sure you land the right messages with them? I think is really important.
Wow. That was something. Because I mean, like, how relevant, not just then. Again, this was, let me go get the date on this one. This was 2020, right? So this is during COVID. But I mean, how relevant is that to us today? I think it was brilliant insight, Oliver, for your first episode. I mean, it's gotten better since then, obviously.
Well, yeah. I have to confess some of that. I mean, not all of it, but some of that was stolen from my boss at the time, Chris Hodson. So shout out to Chris. And
shit, we're going to have to cancel. We're going to have to cut all that out now.
No. I mean, Chris is someone you should probably get on the episode. Actually, he does a good podcast guesting slot. So, and actually, ironically, that whole discussion actually taken to a longer thing is the most popular episode on Architect Tomorrow. It's the journey from security architect to CISO. Is the most I think it's like nearly 3,000 views or something. So it's the one that Chris and I did quite near the beginning, but it was so pertinent. I think a lot of people on their career journeys are going, how do I make CISO? And so there's more of that sort of kind of conversation between Chris and I on how do you really elevate the role and make it relevant to the C-level and the rest of the business.
Yeah. We'll take a beat right there and welcome Shashi.
Hello.
So this part we'll cut out, and it'll only be available on patreon.com. For a few dollars, you can get this footage later on. But for right now, how are you, Shash? How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you all. Awesome people.
Great to see you, buddy.
And Phil's purple hat. Looks like it's a different purple Christmas for you.
It is. This is, by the way, I'm so glad that so many of you don't recognize this, but Lockhart knows right away. It's a Crown Royal hat made out of a Crown Royal bag. So.
Okay.
Crown Royal is a Canadian rye whiskey sold in the United States and Canada.
Yeah.
And it comes, every bottle you buy comes in a royal purple bag because it's Crown Royal.
Yeah.
Do you have a Lego fig for Shashi, Oliver?
No, I don't. Where's my box of Lego? But what I was going to do is wind Phil up once more by showing.
Nice.
This is Lego Phil Santa. Yeah,
that's
it's
Phil.
Actually
that's Lego Phil.
It's Lego.
That's what you get paid for, Oliver.
Yeah,
that's it. I wish. Lego Group, if you're watching, I'm available. Yeah. So
they're not watching. I could tell you right now.
Their business architect might be. I'm confident of that.
Actually, yeah. Just out of curiosity, are you connected to anyone at Lego Corp?
Me?
On LinkedIn? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, a couple of people. Yeah, a couple of people. There was someone I used to work with at my Big Four place that is now there in data science.
When I was a child in Canada, I had two things that I thought were really important that I had achieved. We're not going to use any of this. It will be available on patreon.com. But
you don't need to promote patreon.com to the people already watching it on Patreon.
I'm not even saying the link to the site.
I'm watching this on Patreon.
Because I don't know it yet.
Actually, I have the link. I'll just give me 1 second. I'll get the link. And someone else is talking. I had two things. This is completely irrelevant to the topic. I'm just burning time here. We're way over. But I was part of the Young Astronaut Society of Canada. I thought that was pretty big. And I was a Lego master builder.
Be careful how you say that.
Then what happened? Where did that astronaut go? Where did that waiter go?
Yeah.
And you are into consulting.
All right, enough of that. Okay,
this is what the career opportunities show up when you're a
this
Lego
is what ended up happening. I ended
builder.
Consulting. Yeah.
You're still building business, though.
That's true. Building something. So
arguably a space cadet as well. But anyway.
I mean, he's had a lot of people say that all he's doing is taking up space, but that's not what that wasn't what he was hoping for.
That was below the belt.
Perfect.
Good one.
Perfect. We're still on Christmas Past, okay? So we gotta move this along. You know, this is longer than the Dickens novel itself, right? So Christmas
6 weeks.
Yeah, well, there you go. Christmas Past, we talked about Phil, his first episode, his first appearance. We talked about some insightful, predictive things that I had to say. Oliver's, I think the cold open was brilliant, and I thought your commentary was great. But of course, none of it holds a candle to our resident celebrity. And I think we need to take a look at when Whynde Keane was on the show. It was 2020, and we were discussing.
Was this a guesting thing too?
This was a guest, and
because I remember she came in as a guest first, and we all went, "Oh my God, we got to get Whynde back."
Yeah, I mean, it was. We could talk about what we said afterwards, and that too will only be on Patreon. But it was. We were talking about women in architecture, and it was great. Women in consulting, and it was perfect. Okay, so let's see if we can get this going here,
Yeah, no, and Carol would love your perspective on this as well. I think, I think it's going to be interesting to see as things keep moving down the line. And here's what I mean. I wonder if that sort of lack of life balance is part of why we maybe see not as many women in executive positions. Maybe that is a contributor, I might guess. But what's interesting is I don't feel, and Carol would love to know what you think, I don't feel it's a detractor for younger women getting in the field, because at least I certainly was not thinking, was not planning. And people also are having kids later today. And then if you can kind of move up and then get more flexibility over your schedule as you sort of move up in the ranks, I think it works a little bit better. So I don't know that that's in particular a detractor, but I could see it playing into the executive position.
Wow. Well, let me pause that so we don't just play it in the background. But wow. Right? I mean,
always prescient, always got the right stuff. I mean, but she's a very human person. That's why we like Whynde Keane. She's talking about what are the practical and human ways that we navigate this. What I think is can be a difficult work environment. I mean, it's challenging. It is non-trivial, and we have to figure out how to keep our humanity through it, which is why I always like Whynde's point of view.
And I think especially in that episode where we were talking about traditional gender roles and how that impacts people in their consulting careers. And certainly, Shashi, when you were at Strategy Ann, but at Booz before that, right? Before it became Strategy Ann, I mean, there was a concerted effort. Hey, we are losing women as they move up the ladder. We need to figure out why and address those things, right? And I think that's still valid today. In fact, with the change in working habits with COVID, maybe even more so important today. What's your reaction, Whynde, looking back on that?
Well, and by the way, I totally remember that conversation, and I loved you guys. I just remember being in the conversation, and after, so it's just really cool to be here as part of the cast. But I think what's most interesting to me is at that time, women in architecture, right? WIA, this global initiative, wasn't thought of, wasn't born, right? So it's just interesting to know the things I was thinking and saying back then, now fast forward to chairing that initiative. And, I think all of us trying to bring this to the forefront, even more interesting, as well as how many times we as a group have talked about things like life balance and consulting, I think has been a very strong theme among all of us.
So I think, I definitely the progress has been made, like wherever I am right now for last 3.5 years. I see a lot of continued emphasis on women in consulting, and to be more specific, women in tech consulting. So even when we go and recruit or hire, there is definitely a conscious effort to, kind of bring in, the creative side of, I have another liner for you, Chris, but creative side of consulting, bring in, and, there is definitely an appreciation for the talent, skill, and the viewpoint which women brings to this tech consulting side. I agree with you. I have not seen many women in the actual core technical area around being an architect. I still see there is a gap there. But in general, tech consulting, there is more, people, softer side of tech consulting. I see more women in there, but not in hardcore architecture side still.
So that was sort of the first part of the Dickens novel is, Ghost of Christmas Past. I think that was, look, short of, doing a retrospective on all 68 episodes and the hours and hours of footage, which are available if you would like to watch them at patreon.com/consultants saying things. It's out there, and all the episodes that were released freely will be out there right now. There's season 1 of the podcast is out there, and it has all the episodes that were released and the released version. But it also, each episode has like many minutes of additional content, all transcripted, all captioned, and we've also extracted some other goodies from every episode. Thank you to Claude and ChatGPT. We have extracted out of every episode every book we mention and links to those books on Amazon, every company we've mentioned, every person that we've mentioned in terms of a thought leader or something. All that's been extracted out and is easily, it's there. It's for anyone that wants to consume that information. So, the price point is out there. It's very low. And I think, look, if you're really interested in some of this stuff, there is such good content out there. But let's get to more of the present in the Dickens story. So Christmas Present, if you remember Scrooge, he goes around and the Ghost of Christmas Present is sort of this big, jolly, Father Christmas type of character and that sort of thing. We're not going to go quite there. But what I did want to do is just share a little bit of some of our stats for the year, because I think it's kind of interesting. Yeah, the number 1 episode was almost exactly a year ago. It was the one about using LinkedIn for success. And if you remember that episode, that was with Richard Bliss as a guest, which was fantastic. And as I was looking at the count this morning, it just clicked over 5,000 views on YouTube, to say nothing about the audio version, viewing it through other channels, the website, LinkedIn. I didn't go collect all those numbers, but I thought, look, over 5,000 views directly on YouTube. I thought that was pretty good. You remember that one, guys, right? It was a good one.
Absolutely. It was great. He's always a great guest.
Yeah.
Real actionable advice. And I think he threw us under the bus for our LinkedIn profiles, if I recall that correctly.
He did. He said it was crap, if I remember.
Yeah, it's usually what
Nothing like being roasted, is there, by an expert? It's the quality.
Yeah.
And I got to meet him this year, which was really fun.
Wow, that's cool.
I mean, look at this. Look at this stat from a Spotify. Now these are Spotify stats. I should point out, right, that I'm showing up here. I mentioned YouTube, but Spotify does a year in review for podcasters. This episode was streamed over 500% more than the average episode. And so, look, if you're interested in podcasting, as we are, if you're interested in numbers and analytics and measurements, you look at that and it's like, well, why the hell was that? And I think that's instructive. I'd be curious to get your guys' feedback. Why do you think this one was so much more consumed than anything else this year?
It's more a general interest topic than just consulting. So anyone anywhere uses LinkedIn, right? Any profession, pretty much, particularly knowledge economy. So my take on this would be it's all the cats out there, not just the consulting cats, that consume this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because of the success word. People latch onto how to be successful, right?
Yeah, it was in the title, right?
Yes.
Using LinkedIn for success.
Yes.
And we also had Richard in addition to our networks, right? Being able to get the
Yeah. A little bit more. I mean, this seems unnecessary. All the I don't know what tool they're using, but Swirl. Look at this stat: 84% of the listeners discovered us through 84% of the listeners on Spotify. And by the way, Spotify tracks not just Spotify, but Apple, Google, because it is the central source I use to publish to all of those other platforms. So it tracks all those metrics back. 84% of the people that listened to the podcast on any of those platforms came to us in 2023. fascinating, right?
Do we know where they're coming from, Chris? Like where
I'm glad you asked that, Whynde.
Ecuador.
It's not Ecuador, but just another point on LinkedIn for Success. 13% of the new listeners came in through that episode. Isn't that interesting?
Don't tell Richard that. He'll probably want to charge you a referral fee for those 13.
I'm sure. So get this. Any guesses? Any guesses? So obviously the U.S. is the top country. And Phil, I think you already know the answer. So I think I already told you can't answer. Anyone have an idea what we think the next top country was? If you recall, in the past, we were number 12 business podcast in Ecuador. So that was we never did a Spanish episode, but if we had, that might have. But speaking of Spanish episodes, anyone got some ideas where our people came from to us from this year?
I'm going to go for India.
That's a good guess.
Spanish speaking? Was that the clue that?
Oh, sorry. Spanish speaking. That probably Mexico.
Most of our new listeners came from Spain.
Oh.
If you can figure that one out, I would love to hear it because I couldn't figure it out. We don't speak Spanish. But the
Spanish speak quite a lot of English. I mean, I've worked with a lot of Spanish people, and they're pretty good at English, actually. Yeah.
Interesting, huh? Okay. Let's move this along. We're still, obviously our listeners have good taste. Obviously, you all do. You know what else they listen to on Spotify when it comes to podcasts? Business, obviously, other business podcasts, but also comedy podcasts, which I thought, that was pretty interesting right there, right? I mean, I think we try to be a little funny. It's not necessarily a funny set of topics that we deal with.
Well, maybe it's that they listen to us and then they go, oh my God, I need an anodyne for this. So let's go find a comedy podcast. Or maybe someone's looking for real news when they're done with us. I don't know. It could be any of those things.
What I want to get into now, just real briefly, because I've wasted so much time. We're up against the clock as usual. But, I want to sort of get Christmas present, what each of us, and Shashi will include you in this too, because you've been with us for years, but I want to get like your thoughts on
You're always in my heart, Shashi. Always in my heart. So
it's very spacious.
When I don't know where to take that. That's amazing. But if we think about like 2023, and in the past we've done like, the best moment in the podcast was Whynde's giant head on the screen, or the best moment was Chris describing his 4 middle names and how it's a clown that runs a fast food joint, right? Those sorts of things. Those were good moments. Do we have those sorts of things, each of us from this year? Or if there was something else professionally in the present in 2023, wanted to sort of get some thoughts on that. So I don't know, who wants to go first on that one?
What was the question?
Top moment from 2023.
Oh,
either in the podcast or just professionally.
So I can go on that one. I think for me it was getting ahead of the curve on. Of course, everyone's talking about generative AI, but it was getting ahead of the curve on things like knowledge graph and having some great conversations and doing a proof of concept using the technology way before other people have caught up, and it was quite satisfying to see everyone else sort of in mainstream IT press start to talk about it. And we're ahead of the curve now, which is awesome, and we're doing some really cool stuff. So from a tech perspective, that's got to be my personal highlight of the year, is kind of do some pretty awesome R&D with Gen AI, not on its own, but with other technologies that make it a lot more useful.
Very good. I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite, we talk about podcast episodes and things that we did, and just the opportunity to talk to Whynde and Daryl about their trip across Australia was just fantastic. I mean, to see what they did and how many people they impacted, and just that there were so many people that were hungry for that kind of information, and they were able to go out there and not just deliver that, but to bring them together. And I know that's kind of a recent thing for us to actually as the podcast, but I just think that was a highlight, to just see what happened there and to be able to sort of celebrate with them and talk about, maybe we will inspire some other people to do some stuff in their neck of the woods as well. But I loved that a lot. That was a real highlight for me this year.
I love that you brought that up, Phil. I mean, for me personally, professionally, that is the highlight, right? I thought about before this conversation, just the impact of that. And also just to go through the experience of taking an idea and actually making it real on a very big scale. I also had a highlight, and it might not be this year, but there's another podcast I've gone back to, and that's the mental resilience ones. And there's one what we call This Time with Experts, because as I've had people around me and there's a lot of turbulent times, I've actually been sending people back to that, and I've gone back to watch some of those. So just, we've really had some incredible conversations here, and that one also sticks out for me.
Yeah, my take on this, and then Shashi, I want to get your perspective. Professionally, this was a year of change for me, right? This was a year of profound realignment of work with personal values. And I don't know that I don't know that I would have made the decisions I've made this year without some of these kinds of conversations. Right. When we started this podcast out, like, Phil, you remember we were sitting smoking a cigar at a local bar, and you said something like, "Hey, you know what I think you should do? You should."
I love that. For you, when you do my voice, I sound like a 12-year-old girl. When my wife does my voice, I sound like Homer Simpson. I can't square those, but I'm with you. I get it.
It's Joe Pesci. Why is it Joe Pesci? I don't know.
But... Yeah, there we go.
When you said, "Hey, I think why don't you start a podcast?" And this was 2017. It was fall 2017 when we had that conversation. I remember it, and I think at the time we were talking about, like, we could talk about all kinds of technical, IT related things. Look at the conversations we've had. They've not been technical IT conversations. They've been, how do I function as a good human being? And how do I maintain sanity in a world of chaos? And by the way, if I do those things, I could be a pretty damn good consultant also, right? And I think
my bait and switch game is awesome. I'm just going to say, I tell you, we're going to talk about tech. Nah, that's not what it's going to be at all. Because in the end, oh my God, where's my book? What's it called? The people problem? It's the people that are the problem, right? And so when I say that, those are the things that we really spend our time wrestling with. Because here's the deal. All the technical stuff, we can learn. That stuff's out there. You can go do a YouTube video.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you.
Is that the signed version that cost me $120 to send to the UK?
Yeah, and I feel really bad because actually we haven't actually done the Architect Tomorrow.
We never did the unboxing of a book I released in 2017. But I do cherish this. And thanks for that, Oliver.
We will do it someday.
Well, and what's funny, this is serendipitous, but Shashi was there for the birth of that. You remember Shashi?
Yes.
In the room in a certain client that shall not be named in Indianapolis?
No, 100%. So, I remember we had, let's put this, every article whatever Chris has written, put it on the sticky, put it out on the wall, and you will see a pattern emerging. And I think that was Genesis. Probably he went ahead and listened to me for a change. So eventually there was the birth. So I'm a co-producer of people problem, which is the truth. Like, I use it in my everyday client conversation, whether it's mergers and acquisition, whether it's value creation or any kind of transformation. It's really the process and technology.
I hate to tell you, but every time you use it, it's like 0.7 cents has to come my way. It's
100% is the people problem.
But he'll let you off if you subscribe to his Patreon.
That's right.
Channel.
If you go to patreon.com, consultant saying things, you can get a book for free.
I'll let you read the book for free.
Actually, I'll give you a damn book. I'll sign the damn thing and mail it to you.
Well, talking of signing the book, do you remember what you wrote in the signed copy? Okay.
No, Oliver. No idea.
Tell me your name again. That's what it says.
Yeah, who the hell are you?
Who are you?
You random it says, Oliver, here's the friendships built during crises in capital letters _ and then a C. Just a C. No proper signature, just a C. Like, I'd know who C is. Well, yeah, okay. It's kind of the guy who wrote the book.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Shashi, what's your top moment for the year, or professionally or personally or from the podcast that I know you watch religiously?
Yeah, I do, but I have been missing this podcast, so don't have very solid moments. So I haven't been able to make the big decisions or the jumps what you have made, Chris. I haven't been enlightened by the all the great talks with the intellectual folks. But for me, professionally, it has been pretty much the same. Been doing some exciting work and stuff like that, but not like groundbreaking or anything of that sort, up and down. Personally, I'm pretty much vested into my daughter's high school education, supporting her to realize dreams.
And as usual, you're dealing with connectivity issues, Shashi.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm getting rather robotic static at times. Sorry, Shashi.
That's a constant with Shashi. If you go back, and you can watch all of it on patreon.com/consultant saying things. But if you were to go back in time and look at Shashi, always had microphone problems, connectivity problems. There was always an issue, right?
And I have a theory. I have a service for end user support.
Yeah.
So I have a theory on this. Right? Shashi doesn't actually exist. He's just a very early Gen AI that Chris has created in his shed, and that's why there's sometimes a bit of problem with the generation of the content.
It's like a Nexus 3.
Yeah. He runs on an Apple Newton, right? And that's
wow.
With 16 kilobytes of RAM. Okay, so we follow the Dickens model, right? Again, I had to have a framework for this to structure the conversations. We've done Christmas past. We've talked about Christmas present, and in our ideas. I want to start talking about the future. And oh, by the way, I reached out to all 24 aired or additional guests coming, but aired guests that we've had on this podcast since 2018, and I asked them. I said, "Hey, how are you? First of all, do you remember me?"
No.
Why haven't you accepted my LinkedIn connection? And so
Richard.
Yeah, Richard Bliss. Anyway, so I reached out to all of them and I said, "Hey, I hope you're well. How you doing? Remember our great conversation? I'm sure you do, on Consultants Saying Things, the video podcast about business and technology. And do you have any predictions for 2024?" And I specifically said one prediction. So some folks didn't follow that advice, and I asked specifically for a 30-second video. So what I want to do is, I don't know, only Shashi and Phil would remember this, but I know we all know him. We all know Tom Graves, and Tom Graves.
I know Tom very well.
Sent a very nice message, and I just wanted to play it here for all of us. We can see Tom. Excellent video. It looks like he's in the outback. There's a kookaburra in the back or something. I don't know where he is. Let's see what Tom had to say.
Hey, Tom Graves here, down in Australia. Best tech prediction for 2024? Don't try to predict at all. Instead, get really clear what you want to do, what you want to happen, and then get much better at adapting in real time to whatever's happening. That's the best option there. So, happy chaos all for the new year.
Happy chaos. What?
I love
Yeah.
Isn't it great? Isn't he great?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Perfect.
great. And good advice.
And great advice. Absolutely.
I miss him actually, because he used to be in London, and obviously he's now gone over to the Daryl Carr side of the world. So yes, I did used to bump into Tom at events like British Computer Society and things. Great guy.
Cool.
I have a little story to tell to also advertise patreon.com/consultant saying things. I recorded a 1.5 hour session. That's what I'm going to call it, with Tom Graves, in which both of us were drinking wine well into the cups. And I recorded this thing with the intent. Actually, it was before we recorded an episode with him, which was, if I remember, it was about continuous learning. So if you want to see more of Tom Graves, continuous learning was the episode. But I recorded sort of like a pre-thing with him, like, hey, this is what it's about. This is what we're trying to do. It ended up a 90-minute wine drinking bacchanalia. And
he didn't consent to the recording, and he will be suing you when it comes out. But it'd be great content all the same. It's
fantastic content because, I don't have any original thoughts of my own, as we all well know. But I asked some what I thought were decent questions, but I was, high on my own grape juice. And so, but it was fantastic the stuff that he had to say. And I've been waiting for a way to get this to the world, because I think Tom Graves's work and his thinking deserves a much wider audience than a wider paying audience than it currently has. The man is brilliant, right, when it comes to all of this. So I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that while I prep the next clip.
Well, actually, talking of Tom Graves, let's give him a bit of a plug as well. So I have Everyday Enterprise Architecture by Tom Graves here. I've given it. I haven't done a cover to cover on it. I've read bits of it. It's a great book, and I think he's also bringing out a whole EA book or something along those lines as well. So he's you do need to check him out as an author. He puts out some great stuff in blog form and in published form.
And I know some of his earlier work was sort of self-published pamphlet style stuff, and I know that he has subsequently brought on board. I'm just going to vomit. Apparently, sorry, apologize for that. We'll cut that bit out, although it will be available on Patreon.com. What I was going to say is
a real outtake.
He's brought on some real some folks that have really upped the production quality of his material, right? And I know. There's diagrams, there's all kinds of great stuff. And we should probably have Tom on to talk about his new work sometime in the near future. In the meantime, I don't know what to do with this one. I'm gonna share it, and then we're gonna have to figure out how this is gonna work. You may recall we did. Shashi will probably remember this. Phil will as well. We did an episode around customer relationship management, and at the time. Phil and I have a mutual friend who at the time was working in selling and coaching around CRM. And he had some thoughts to say about that. His name is Jim Sevier. He is now a professional like chef. And I will make sure we get links to everyone's stuff on when we post this episode. But Jim has a commercial kitchen in his house in which he makes I think he's trained in France for quite some time and makes tremendous food. Doesn't sell CRM anymore, but he did send in a little message, which, as you can see, is a very little message. It's a tiny message. I don't know how to. We can go full screen on this, but it's gonna be pretty pixelated. So let's see if we can get this. Let's see what Jim had to say.
Hey guys, this is Jim Sevier, and Merry Christmas. AI will be the leading topic of discussion in business tech for decades to come. My prediction centers on the impact of those in the business of creating AI, an impact that I believe will ultimately end up in the lap of the Supreme Court. Who owns the rights? If you build your AI off of my book, painting, speech, performance, then I should get a dividend off the profit you make off of your AI. And if you're wondering, this is exactly why the Hollywood writers' strike lasted 148 days. Your thoughts?
So I should also point out. Oh, he's still talking. Fuck, sorry about that. Cut that bit out. It will be
on Patreon when you can hear all the swearing. You're like,
So I would like to point out that Jim Sevier, his wife, works in the entertainment industry, and Jim himself is in season 4, episode 10 of Mad Men, with Don Draper, John Hamm. There's an episode where they're in a Playboy club in New York in the 60s, and Jim is an extra in the background smoking a clove cigarette. Right? So anyway, his wife is in the entertainment industry, and so I think that was kind of his lens as he was looking through this is content ownership. What do we think about that?
So I have so much to say on this one, so you may have to shut me up. But because we did
thank you, Oliver. And on to I'm just.
We did a whole panel discussion actually on the unintended consequences of technology transformation, majoring on the current AI trend. And so, yeah, and actually it's already happening. So I don't know how much you heard the story, but Getty Images actually sued one of the AI makers because it was blatantly obvious that their watermarks were in the generated images. So that's one example of this already happening. There's also, I believe, an ongoing piece of action going on around Copilot and the fact that that's trained on a whole load of open source code. So there is certainly rumblings, if not an ongoing legal action around that. So it's already happening, and I think it's a very pertinent piece. The other thing I'd just like to comment on is where will the strikes go next? So, in fact, what's coming out fairly soon from me is an Architect Tomorrow episode talking about 2023 and 2024 in my usual style. And in fact, Penny Townsend, who's a Salesforce consultant, she talked about how her prediction is that maybe it will be customer service representatives or maybe even lawyers that will be the next to go on strike, because this is coming pretty much for every sector. It's just, how prepared are you, and are you becoming the product owner? I always recommend to people to try and become the product owner of what they do, rather than actually continue to do it, because I think that's how you future-proof your career. So yeah, a fascinating one, and I think bang on.
No, I mean, perfectly said. I mean, and I like your unintended consequences, because this content right is one thread, and we know there are just endless threads of this. So I think that's spot on. And it's easy to get caught up on the hype and excitement, but there's a lot of things to think through across the world.
And I guess, Chris, if you don't mind, a little plug for a paper I wrote this year, very much on those risks. Of
and moving on to
Patreon.
Yeah, no, plug the paper, because it was a good one. I read it; it was actually really good.
Cool. So if you don't mind, maybe putting the link in the notes for people that haven't seen it yet, that'd be great.
Well, you don't want to talk about it?
Oh, I thought you wanted to move on.
After all of that, no.
Sorry. So okay. So just quickly then, the paper talks about the kind of the non-happy path, the kind of it's a bit British, right? It's kind of a bit doom and gloom. No, it's fairly pragmatic, I hope, the feedback I've had anyway. And it's basically setting out what are the kind of business and technology risks of this new tech, the class of tech, that we're now seeing hit the headlines, and ultimately, what as an architect, can you do about this to mitigate it? So I touched on some of this earlier, like putting in other pieces of technology, putting in human feedback loops, putting in hard rules, all this stuff. I think at the moment the fashion seems to be, we don't need traditional logic anymore. Let's just let a rather ambiguous, non-deterministic thing that we kind of trust but kind of don't make all our decisions for us. And it's like, well, no, actually, logic is still cool. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can still use some filtering and some logic to kind of put some guide rails around things. So yeah, in summary, that it's fairly short, but it talks about the risks and potential sort of architectural considerations for mitigating those risks.
So let's talk about architectural consideration. I'm sorry, Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting take. And I kind of, I think about, I taught my kids to read off of McGuffey primers. I taught them, they learned how to, do all kinds of things by looking at other bits of data. And none of those people come back and ask my kids for any money in order, because they taught them those skills. And I'm wondering how that frames this entire conversation. And I think that the reason that people are going for AI is, I wonder if it might be because they see a pile of money there and they're thinking maybe that should be owed to me. I like the idea that, if you are no individual artist is going to solve this problem, I think, unless you're maybe Taylor Swift, someone exceedingly well-funded, right? But I think, there's an argument to be made that artists ought to be together in some sort of guild, much the same way that they did the licensing arrangements with their music's being performed in a public space. I kind of see that is a path to solving some of this, but I'm not exactly sure when everybody published a whole bunch of data out in the world and didn't ask for anybody to pay for it, why an AI owes them money for that. I'm not sure how that goes yet. So it's an interesting conversation.
There's a really interesting example that Penny gave, actually, without stealing too much thunder of my content. But she said, consider the extra in a film. The extra in a film could potentially be generated by the studio, but they didn't make an awful lot of money from the 3 or 4 films that maybe they featured in. So is it fair that the extra loses all future revenue because the studio can now generate them? I think it's one thing if you're Tom Cruise. It's something else if you're Joe Bloggs, who's just an extra. I think that's where I was kind of leaning towards what you were saying until I realized that point. This impacts people in ways that we perhaps don't quite fully wrap our head around yet.
Well, I get that, Oliver. Before the movie industry existed, how did those people get paid? What did they do?
But the point is, going forwards, they won't necessarily get the extra work that they do today. right?
Yeah, this
Because
is the buggy
computer can
whip
generate it.
This is the buggy whip argument. None of those people that made buggy whips are getting paid today anyway, or people who train horses or build carriages. That business just changed. That's all.
I love it. This is a whole episode. We'll get.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I think that's.
I think it's a fascinating conversation. Yeah. I don't think it's as easy as some of the stuff I've heard.
The thing is, though, Chris, we won't actually be in that episode because you're going to monetize this so successfully. You're just going to generate all of our content for us. You're just going to write a script.
I will have a great conversation with a generative AI.
Yeah.
So Chris is an AI. Chris is a generative AI who's going to make money off the content we provide him.
That's right. This is a learning exercise. I'm learning from you. Yeah.
Shashi, I'm not sure you are real, to tell you the truth. You might have that might be a plugin that Chris loaded into this. By the way, how much is this cameo costing us, Shashi?
How do I trust that you? How do I trust that you are not a?
I know.
Chris is.
You can see my ears, which I think AI still has.
Chris can mimic you. See,
not me.
He knows about your head. He knows about your hat.
Yeah. All right.
So you're the real Spider-Man. You're the real Spider-Man.
Let's move along. Yeah, right. The finger pointing Spider-Man meme. So I didn't get a video, but true to his form, I got a slide deck from Chris Potts. Chris Potts wanted to send along a slide deck. I'm sharing a slide that he asked me to share. Nice. He wanted sort of a perspective on this. He has not presented this to anyone yet. He was slated to, and I think he has an illness that prevented him from presenting this. So obviously we wish Chris Potts well. He didn't send a video, but he sent a message, and it's many paragraphs, but I'll go to the bit that I think is really what was key for him in this particular slide. He was reflecting on things he's done throughout his career, and he has landed on the principle that everyone is right about something, and has put together sort of this framework that I'm displaying that shows, in his view, sort of a unifying value proposition, using some of the key elements related to architecture and planning and leadership, which I think his leadership piece is something that you don't often see on some of these diagrams, right? So I think this, I like this. I would love to hear Chris talk about this and what it means and how it can be applied practically, right? And those sorts of things. But I thought I wanted to share this because I thought this was good. And he said very specifically, please share this with Consultants Saying Things and my fellow friends on the panel. I hope they find it interesting. It touches on some of the subjects I know that you guys are passionate about. So a little hat tip from Chris Potts. What do we think about this?
I love it 100%. It's my world pretty much. So this is great.
And the themes too, so spot on, so exactly right. And I just love that Chris Potts made this as his contribution. It's perfect. Love it. All the best.
It's on brand.
Yes.
Yes.
And talking of Chris, let's plug one of his books, because I've got 3 of them. So this is Defriction. Nice. There's a series of 3 books. These are some of the best novels. The first time I came across this concept actually with Chris, right, where it's a novel, but it's to illustrate a business concept. It's if you haven't read them, they are brilliant.
Lovely.
And what are they again, Oliver?
For
the cats out there.
Yeah, so it's the Fruition series. It's the Fruition trilogy.
Fruition. With
so the Fruition is the first one.
The IT is capitalized. Yeah, right.
Fruition, recreation or recreation, Defriction, and then it's a trilogy of 4 because he put out a PDF sort of sequel to the trilogy. But he's a brilliant writer. So if people haven't checked that out, particularly if you're in the EA space or a CIO or an IT leader, definitely worth checking out.
And he's been in the industry for eons.
For a long time.
Yep.
Yeah. My first interaction with him was, I don't know if he ever spoke directly, but when we were there was an enterprise architecture organization which was being formed outside, where people would get certified, people not certified, people will be a registered enterprise architect. I forgot the name of that organization, but it got dismantled. Chris was part of that.
So I think it was Certified Enterprise Architects or something, wasn't it?
Something like that. It was not certification, Brian Cameron was there. I mean, he's running in Penn State. He is in Smeal business. He has some master's program around enterprise architecture.
Well, I thought that was nice of him to write out something instead of recording a 30-second video. He wrote a whole bunch of stuff, and I thought that was on brand, as Phil said, and I thought it was just great. So good for him. While I'm here, before I show sort of the final video I wanted to get to, I got messages from Ian Lang. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Brent Stokes, Mark Bastian. I got Nathan Alchin, Doug Cohn, who we talked to about open source, Andrew Tanner, Mike Walker, nice. Larry Joya. Dr. Haley and Gavin, right? I've got messages from all these folks basically saying like, hey, really, I'm paraphrasing all of them together because we don't have time to show everybody, but it's like, thank you for having us on. Great conversation. Love the dialogue. And it's just, wow.
Can you share those? Because I'd love to see some of those.
Absolutely. I will do that. Yeah. But before
it's going to cost you $5 a month.
It'll be available on patreon.com/consultant saying things, which by the way is a real site. And if you go there and toss a virtual token in the tip jar, you too can.
I love how your first customers are going to be the panel. That's just genius.
Yeah,
you get our own stuff.
Well, because we've got to go and check. We've got to go check what you've put out there. Like, right, what things did I tell you had to cut out? Are you now making public for everyone to see?
So even with that, because I had to go back through all, and I did season 1. I had to go back through every single minute of everything that was recorded, which, as you might imagine, took quite a lot of time. And there was even some stuff where I was like, no, this is out.
Blade the shade.
Because
the shade. I've not heard that one before. That's a good one.
I'm going to cut that one out. So, the last one I wanted to share, just because I think this episode is out right now, all the way from Australia in much better video quality than we got in the episode. We have our good friend, Daryl Carr. And let's see what Daryl has to say.
Merry Christmas from Down Under to all you cats in the Consultant Saying Things crew, and to all your viewers and listeners too. What an amazing 2023. It was such an inspiration to be part of so many things, including your recent episode on community. And I'm looking forward to an even bigger 2024. So I have 2 predictions for next year. The first is that we'll see the rise of the AI strategy advisor. Exciting and horrifying people in equal measure. The second is that 2024 is the year where climate action hits the bottom line hard, forcing a step change in sustainability practices. Of course, I'm also looking forward to the community really impacting gender equality in the architecture disciplines, but I didn't want to get too greedy. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and thanks for asking me to be a part of your end of year special. Merry Christmas from Down Under to all you.
Repeating. Wow. What do we think? Whynde, you were there with the man, dodging venomous animals through the whole continent.
What a perfect way to end. I think his predictions are very spot on as well. With the AI and climate, that's actually sort of related to one of my predictions too, and people just getting serious about action. So what a thoughtful message from Daryl, and a great way to end. Absolutely.
It's great. By the way, does he whisper because it's so late down there when he's talking to us? It's like 2 a.m. or something. And so he's, it's like soft spoken and so nice. It's like, oh, I don't know. Is everybody in Australia that, or is it just because it's so late?
He's tired. It's the middle of the night. I don't know.
Right.
So I particularly love that because he's just named the 2 things that are pretty much my world, right? Which is, how does AI hit businesses strategically? How do you think about the bigger picture? And also the sustainability angle is, as you all know, very much close to my heart. So yeah, I hope both those things are true. The AI strategy one, we've already talked about some of the darker side of it, and it's scary and exciting in equal measure. I think it just feels like every year at the moment is just kind of bringing faster change. It just feels like we're on that sort of curve, right, where progress is just happening faster and faster and faster. So I think 2024 is going to be the year which we can't quite believe. I think it's going to be one of them years we look at the end of the year, we look at the beginning, we think, how has this just happened in 1 year? I truly believe that, because of the amount. This year has really been about people learning the possibility and using these technologies. The things you're now seeing people create, and the launch of the new models, like I'm pretty confident that Google DeepMind's Gemini models will be really game changing, and they've only quietly dropped, so we're only starting to see those come like a few months' time. We'll see people doing real things with them, and I'm fairly confident it's going to knock people's socks off.
So that's your official prediction then?
That's my official prediction, is that the AI will go even further than we ever thought. Yeah, it's not hype. It's going to continue to go up.
Shashi, do you have one? Can you give me one?
No. I have a different perspective first. I think it's AI and sustainability were like slam dunk. If you ask, I think 98 people out of 100 would give the same prediction, or 99, or probably entire 100. Question is, if you keep all of both sides, what additional prediction people can make? AI is there, like is there to stay. We have seen the real value. I mean, when I work with corporations, they are at a very, very early stage. Assets which are AI enabled are considered so hot that they want to get sold at 5 times or 6 times of the multiples.
I'm sorry. Let me reset. Let me reset my AI, Shashi, because his audio is.
You know what? You know why? It's because the generative AI is like, no, you can't reveal the secrets about the AI that's about to unfold. You can't do this, Shashi. We're censoring you. Stop it.
So interesting fact.
No, your audio's crap, Shashi. We're gonna have to. You'll have to reboot or something. But yeah. So, all right.
Can I riff off what Oliver shared then as sort of prediction, or what I'm going to say as a hope? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Your prediction, Whynde, of course.
Definitely on the same wavelength. When I think about, and you know what, it feels like, and a forever optimist here, right? But it feels like we're in a really turbulent period, and we're going to be for the 2024 feels turbulent and some years ahead. And that is in business, governments, and individuals, right? Even with political, economic. I think the biggest drivers, just what you've said, sustainability, climate, AI, and uncertainty. So Oliver, I'm totally on that wavelength. And so for me, maybe it's not so much a prediction, because I do feel like a lot has been said that I can't add on. So maybe I'm going to cheat and say it's a hope. But kind of like with digital transformation in the pandemic, it felt like there was a point where it moved a little bit out of the hype and like, just get down to it and do it and figure out what it means and get serious, right? And stop following everybody and just get serious. So maybe again, it's a hope, but I hope that particularly with things like sustainability and AI, like businesses become a little bit more thoughtful, methodical. What does it really mean? What is the ROI? Not just like, oh, do Gen AI like others are. For individuals, I hope that we will be more discerning, that we will have greater thought processes and decision making on the data I'm looking at. And like we said earlier, what are the unintended consequences of this? Like not just going along, but really being thoughtful about what we do as individuals. And lastly, for individuals and organizations, like moving into a more serious level of just resilience building and what that's going to look like for all of us, because we know we're going to have that. So sorry, Chris, I cheated with some hopes, but maybe those will be predictions.
I think that's great. Thank you, Whynde. Shash,
I'm at a better place now.
Now that I rebooted you.
So
it's in a better place.
So
I love it. He was in the bad place before.
I know. So sustainability, I totally agree. Everybody has been talking about it. So it's time to stop talking and taking action. That's the critical part of it. But I am less hopeful that it's going to happen that much in the corporate world, primarily for two reasons. One is you need the policies in some way to enforce them or demonstrate some incentives. The kind of economic situation we are in right now, when I was looking at the survey, extremely less number of CFOs in the list of their priorities. Sustainability was probably second last. And it was difference between CFO and CEO. CFO's list, it was second last, CEO's little bit above. But then most of the CEO largely do the talking part, and CFOs are the one who kind of control the money.
And actually, sorry to jump in a second, but isn't that mad? Because the CFO can save so much money by doing things more sustainably. It's bonkers. If anyone should be championing for sustainability, it should be the CFO.
So there is an element of education that is required in most of our conversation. It hasn't happened in the corporate world yet. There have been some ESG specific assessment when anybody is trying to acquire any new asset, but I think that's always gets on the back burner or the last thing they think about. It's not the first few things they want to think about when they look at ESG at this point in time. Still, it's going to take some time.
And we should say in North America, right?
Correct.
Correct.
North America. Yeah, in North America, I'm thinking.
And this is a whole topic, right? But when we've talked about sustainability, we should probably talk some more about sustainability with specific lenses. But at any rate, good one, Shash.
I have one prediction around.
Shit. You're going to take all the fucking time? Come on.
Democratization of AI.
It'll be available on patreon.com. You can hear everything Shashi says. Go on, sir. Go.
So the talent, I think we are missing the biggest part of it. There will be a major talent or skill shift in the coming, not only like 2024 and beyond. That shift has to happen because of the after effects of AI. It's going to get democratized. They are not going to come to the technology organization for them to build AI-related solution. They might end up doing it either themselves because they will become skilled, like marketing. They do a lot of technology within their department. They don't come to a technology department to get it done. Similar thing would happen when generative AI and all will come into play. And they are going to train themselves, the business savvy folks, a little bit more tech savvy business folks, and they will start implementing solution themselves. So there is going to be democratization of AI skills, and the talent has to shift.
I'd agree with that one. And in fact, I don't even think it's AI skills because these things are going to become so easy to use.
Yes.
That it's just going to be like a Google search. That's probably my prediction. For certain use cases next year, you'll just pull it out and go, do this for me. I'm already doing it. Claude 2 is blowing me away with how it can help with stuff. And the more people sort of start to latch onto that and realize what this can do for them day to day, the better and more productive they're going to become next year. So that's my tip for people.
Including writing the code. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. Philip Yanoff, Baron of Sealand.
Yeah, man. Well, I think those are good hits, and I think that's right. I mean, to kind of level off or to come off of Shashi's point in the earlier a little bit first. So this, as he calls it, the democratization, is also the rise of citizen developers, right? So that means not only will more people inside of an enterprise organization be actually developing code, but there'll be a lot of people writing code that didn't write code because the tools are out there to do that. I can ask a question and one of these things is going to generate the Python code to do that. And if I can figure out how to run it, then I'll be good. So the thing is that it's a power amplifier, right? And we know that this digitization, that for all of us, this has made so many things possible, but we've also relied up to this point on not everybody could do it. And that was a safety mechanism. And now DevSecOps is a big deal, right? So security, cybersecurity. I mean, basically the number of attacks, impersonations, et cetera, I think the things that we're going to see, this is going to become even bigger, even more critical. And we're, the internet went from a thing that kind of, everybody was like, what are good guys going to do to develop good information? Now bad guys are gaming the system. Any game that's developed, someone's out there figuring out to game the game. And I think that we're going to see just more and more of that AI. It's going to be harder to figure out what's real in the world for us or for bots or for otherwise. And I think security and real things, financial transactions, health transactions, et cetera. I think this is going to become more and more of a concern for all of us. And I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do with that because, even now, I mean, I look at a thing and say, that dude, he didn't write that article. That's an AI article. But that's going to go away. At some point, it's going to be so good, I won't be able to tell just by looking at a thing. And I get it. Maybe it's good enough so it actually passes the Phil's Turing test kind of a thing. But maybe, the problem I have so far with so many of these things, at least in my own experiences, is that it hallucinates sometimes important details. And so if I can't tell if it's true or not, if I can't figure out where to go to get, I will spend all of my time trying to fact check every damn thing I'm reading. And I don't want to live in that world.
So a couple of things I want to riff on that one just quickly, if you don't mind, Chris. One, unfortunately, the first generation of generative AI is a bit like the first Ford Model T that perhaps broke down every 5 minutes, right? for those that haven't looked at Claude 2.1, for example, its hallucination is far, far less, right? And its reasoning capability is what's blowing me away. It's not its statistical word generation piece. It's the fact it can have a reasoned conversation with you. It can make, evidence-based arguments and link concepts. And so I think the hallucination piece is going to be one of them bits of baggage that these things always. And I'm not saying it isn't going to be a thing. It will always be an issue with this technology.
So
but,
to your point, Oliver, can I agree with you first? I get it, and I believe all that to be true. But what if I go to Claude 2.1 and said, "Look, I want a great argument for why the world is flat. Can you write me a blog post on that, please?"
It probably won't do it because it will say that there is scientific material. But the point is, what I'm trying to make is it's not just statistical word generation anymore. There is so if you look at constitutional AI, and not going to go down the rabbit hole, but there is a common sense sort of data structure in there, right? So it's got if you look at Wikipedia, there's like a knowledge graph in Wikipedia. So there are concepts that you can use to kind of go, this is established wisdom. Therefore, if you challenge established wisdom, and this is where it gets political, though. That's probably something else to watch out for next year is the technology getting increasingly political. That's something I'm seeing. I think business is getting increasingly political, and I think we're seeing our technology also become political. So Claude takes quite a political stance on things. In fact, I suspect, given Chris, you and Phil lean slightly differently to me politically, you may not like Claude because it may not generate you things. It may sort of try and correct you because your political stance is wrong because it's more progressive and left-leaning.
Yeah. So I don't want to fix your thinking about me, but in this bit, and I get it. I love Claude. I think that's I haven't played around with the newest one, but I get all of that. And I am glad that someone out there is actually thinking about a safety-first approach to all this. I don't think everybody's doing that.
No,
and the thing is, I think we all know people who probably don't give one care for
just
this,
give it to
right?
me.
I mean,
yep.
Just let me tell it. I wanted to build a bomb. I wanted to come up with a poison that can't be detected. I just think there are all kinds of answers to questions it could come up with, which aren't in fact safe. And I get it that there are people building out safety, but there are other guys going, "Oh, heck with that. Let's just start building the thing and see what happens."
Agreed.
And so on to my prediction for.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, who are you?
Merry Christmas.
Remember me?
Wait, I want your P Doom, Lockhart.
The cat with
What's
the
your
hair?
P Doom?
My P Doom?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, right? Obviously, AI is on the top of everyone's prediction list, but here my slightly different lens, right, is I've always been critical of doing things because we can, right, and not debating whether or not we should, right? And I think that's a line out of Jurassic Park. Sir Richard Attenborough, bless his heart. So I think one of the things that I always look at is how is this relevant and practical and applicable to my business? And I think there are AI capabilities. I'm thinking primarily right now of Copilot and some other capabilities in that space, whether it's Excel Copilot, eliminating the need for anyone to understand VLOOKUP. Right? That's a big one. It's going to save a lot of fucking time. Let me tell you right now. But more practically, Copilot for the use in suggesting better code during the development lifecycle. And I'm specifically thinking of things that GitHub is doing and some other things. Not to drop a product, but it's pretty spectacular. And so what I think about that though is like, okay, well, why? I need AI. I got to have AI. I'm an MD or I'm a whatever CI. I need AI. What? Why? What? To paraphrase David C. Baker, who I drank a lot of whiskey with last week. What business problem am I solving by applying this technology? That's got to be the fundamental thing that we ask ourselves. And so my prediction for 2024 is more of that dialogue and discussion will enter into the realm of AI. And yes, of course, there's going to be lots of gee whiz, look at this shiny thing. And, oh, the next version of this. And, and now it can, do whatever it's going to do for you. But I really
Did you see the news anchors? Did you see the news anchors one? Did anyone see that?
I didn't, but I can imagine.
I've seen a guy do it already. Yeah, in a presentation.
Right.
Guy do the news anchor one.
Yeah.
That's going to be common. It'll be literally last year's news, and it will be like, okay, we do these things now. Now the question is, for what purpose, right? And that I think is what we've got to get to. It's not. Okay, yes, people will still do. Look how cool this is. great. That's awesome. What can I do with it in an uncertain economic environment to lower my operating cost of delivering X in Y time? Because at the end of it, there's a dollar sign at the end of it somewhere, right? And
unfortunately that comes with casualties, right? I mean, if you do that,
of course it does.
Who loses their livelihoods as a result?
Of course it does, right? But that's going to be the conversation, and I think, and that's my prediction on that one. So
nice.
That's what I got. Listen, guys, 6 years of this thing, right? I'm amazed that anyone cares. I was at it, like I said, I was at an event in Austin last week, and I had someone come up to me who I had not ever met in person before, and had only met virtually once prior. And they said, when's the next episode coming out? All right. And I was like, yeah. Right? Like
Patreon.
Patreon.com. I've been alluding to it the whole episode. But so one of the things that
alluding to
it, promoting it. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you know what that word means. Allude.
So here's the deal, right? This is not a money grab. This is about, hey, there was so much content associated with this podcast. Side conversations, extra footage that never made it because it's not presentable, or off-color conversations, right? Things of that. There's all sorts of stuff, hundreds of hours of things. And I think because I've watched all of it, and I think I know embedded in that content are really good conversations with impactful, interesting dialogue that just for whatever reason didn't fit an episode, right? And so it was cut. And so here's the deal. I want to make that available to people that maybe want to see that or might find it interesting. And also to people who might say, hey, we think what you're doing is kind of cool, and we want to support it a little bit. What are the costs associated with running this podcast? Honestly, they're not that high, right? I mean, a Zoom subscription, whatever. I mean, again, this is not about making money. But if you're interested in helping foster the production of content for this kind of conversations that we had here today and other conversations that we had, visit patreon.com/consultant saying things, sign up. You get all the free stuff that everyone gets. And if you throw a couple shekels in the tip jar, you will also get all the other stuff that no one has ever seen before. And we're going to be doing special things, special one-off conversations, Q&A. And oh, by the way, let's not forget the fact that we have a massive, massive network of people that know a whole bunch of stuff about a whole bunch of stuff. And if you're the kind of cat that likes to use the LinkedIn for finding new business, this might be one way to get connected with some of those folks. I just volunteered all of the people in our network to connect with them.
Thanks, Chris. And can I just say, there is a short survey before you get to become a Patreon subscriber, sure. And we do ask you to answer this honestly, right? And if you have been an employee of
every block that has a bicycle in it, is that what you're going?
But basically, if you've ever been an employee of one of the companies we've ever worked, if you're a lawyer, then please answer correctly, because unfortunately you won't be getting access to the Patreon area. But other than that, please enjoy.
Yeah, gonna cut it right off if you but no, I want to make all that stuff available. And it's one thing you put it all out there for free. It's another thing if someone's like, hey, I'm really interested, and I'll pay you $1 or $2 or $5 to gain access to some of this stuff and the other things that you guys do, which, as we know, we do a lot of stuff and we talk to a lot of cool people, and not everything makes its way freely available to the public. So I think that's what we're going to do that's my last prediction for 2024. 100 subscribers on the Patreon site. There we go.
We're putting some wager behind this one.
Like and subscribe.
Over under on that, Frank. Yeah.
Listen, I appreciate all of your time. I know we went. This is now 2 hours and 33 minutes. We'll cut it down and make the rest of it available on the Patreon site. But listen, guys, I appreciate every single one of you. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us for this. And Shashi, it's great to see you again, my friend, as always.
Yes.
So, Phil Yanoff, with the Crown Royal Santa hat. Thank you very much. Whynde Keane with the Nissa in the background there, the little Norwegian gnome who travels around spreading cheer and fear wherever he goes. Oliver Kronk with his Lego trains. It's a trolley. Yeah, that's good. Shashi Shamali.
I'm with myself.
It's just you. We rubbed the lamp and you appeared, and it's fantastic.
Oof. A magical Shashi Shamali. By the way,
Listen, everybody,
Oliver, I bought the. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Do.
I got the Lego Advent calendar this year.
Which one? Because there's quite a few. My son's got the Marvel one.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. Mine's just like Lego-y stuff. Christmas scenes. It's Santa stuff.
Nice.
I was drinking out of this Duvel glass for you, Oliver, because I know that your grandfather. Yeah. Listen.
Yeah.
And beat, and I'll cut in here, and then we go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again in 2023. I hope that you continue to follow this podcast because we talk to some pretty cool cats and we have some pretty cool conversations. Thank you to everyone that's been a guest on the podcast this year. And listen, guys, have a happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy.
See everybody next time. Woo!